Welcome to Explore, a faculty-led webinar series designed to help high school students discover and engage with different academic disciplines. Through these webinars, Ashoka faculty will give you a glimpse of how subjects are taught and studied at Ashoka. Thank you for joining us today. Today's session is on what AI can't tell you, thinking like a computer scientist. I am Charan. I'll be the moderator of the session. I had the outreach for the South region and I'm based out of Hyderabad. So joining me today is one of Ashoka's most distinguished speakers, Aalok Thakkar. He's the Assistant Professor of Computer Science at Ashoka University. His research focuses on integrating formal methods and artificial intelligence with particular emphasis on applying formal methods in programming by examples for relational queries, synthesis of reactive programs, bounded model checking, verification of smart contracts, and text generation. Professor Thakkar's research has been published in top-tier conferences such as VLDB, Splash, and PLDI. He completed his PhD in computer science and information science and from the University of Pennsylvania in May 2023 with a thesis on example-guided synthesis on relational queries. A very warm welcome to you, Professor. Before we get started, I would like to inform our audience that registrations for the undergraduate program starting next year, that is August 2026, are now open. I would encourage students to register soon and have access to personalized mentorship with our academic counselors, interactions with Ashoka students to learn more about the campus life and receive guidance for Ashoka's holistic admission process. Now, without further ado, let's get started. I would request our audience to kindly type in any questions they might have in the Q&A box provided on your Zoom screen. We will be taking them at the end of the session. Yes, Professor, please go ahead.
Yeah. So, hello, everyone. Good evening to all of you. I see that many of you have posted good evening messages, so just answering all of you live at the same time. During this conversation, if you have any questions, you are welcome to just post them on the chat, and we'll also have some time for you to unmute yourself and talk to us towards the end of the presentation. Today with us, we will have one of my students, Vedant Gautam, joining us in just a little bit. He has a test right now, so he's just finishing it up and then rushing to my office. So he should be here in about another 5 minutes or so. Before we hear from Vedant, I would like to hear from all of you. Are there any particular things that you think AI cannot do? There must be something. If it can do everything, then we are done. We don't need to do computer science. I should quit my job. But thankfully, there is some things that AI cannot do. We'll discuss that today. But I want to hear from you. What all do you think AI cannot do? Adi Biswas says, have genuine feelings. And Murugan says, gut feelings. So AI may not be able to feel. That's great. Empathize with people. Counseling. Logical reasoning. Logical reasoning is my area of work. So I'll go deeper into that, Asmith. But thank you for that prompt. It cannot connect emotionally. We see that many of the human aspects, feelings, empathy, connecting emotionally, maybe AI cannot do. It's the artificial part that restricts it. Please keep the answers coming. Emotions, sympathy. There is a very interesting answer. Intersection of two sectors or areas. All the great leaps in science happened because someone figured out similarity between two things that we did not realize before. One clear example of that is electromagnetism. There's electricity, there is magnetism. Both of them have the same phenomena, was a great leap. Intersection between two areas or sectors, seeing similarity between two apparently different things is how science makes progress. And maybe AI cannot do that. Great answer. Psychology, understanding humans. Emotions, replicating humans. Building intuition. Another very interesting answer. AI does not have morals. Someone has to program them in. AI is effectively following our rules. And if we don't set the right set of rules, we may have not instilled the right moral principles. There's an amazing film on it, Ex Machina. I strongly recommend all of you to watch it. And if you haven't watched it, that's okay. I'm sure many of you will end up joining Ashoka. And at that time, I do a screening in my course every semester, Intro to CS, where we see that film. It's a version of Tempest, actually. So some of you may have read Shakespeare's Tempest. In that film, we see what happens when the rules with which we are building AI are not good enough. Let me just type it down. It's Machina. So that's a great movie. Please check it out if you have time. Harsh says AI predicts from data. Humans can act on gut instincts even without evidence. It cannot create completely new ideas or products on its own. Interestingly, AI has come up with some new ideas, ideas that we did not know before, but we'll discuss that at some point. Uh, can't evolve itself. We build AI, it can do some problem solving, but it doesn't improve itself as humans have for generations and generations. Uh, it lacks sense organs. It cannot perceive the real world in the same way that we do with our five organs and uh, understand it, feel it, again, connecting the very human aspect. All of these are true, at least in some capacity. AI fails to replicate human beings in many, many ways. It does, someone says, what about get? Asmit Kumar, can you rewrite your question? I'm not entirely sure what you mean. What about get? Uh, but yes, AI cannot replace humans in many different aspects. But what about the question of intelligence itself? Today, if I have to write an email, I use an email client called Superhuman. It's amazing. Strongly recommend all of you to try it. I click a button, it writes an email, and it has been trained, or rather tuned, on my email writing style. So it actually defaults to the kind of words I use, the sentence formation I use, and sometimes even it's hard for me to tell whether I wrote it or was it automatically generated. So that, yes, as our organizing team suggested, please type your questions in the Q&A box, and I'll try to take as many of them as possible. But let me go over some of the comments that you've left. AI cannot impart learning and understandability. It's programmed for agreeing with the user. Lovely. So, Taroshi, we're going to do an exercise together, and we're going to see what exactly Taroshi means. It is built for agreeing with the user. So, if you are wrong, it might reinforce your wrongness. And if you are right, it may reinforce your rightness. So, it is true. Yeah, it is very biased. AI doesn't have its own opinion, it only produces what it's been programmed to favor. Yes, and that creates sometimes discriminatory behavior and unfair behavior from AI. Vedant is here. Join from your computer, but turn off the mic so we can use the same mic. Great. Thanks, Vedant. AI might translate words but misses culture. I have a slide on that too. So I have built some slides and put it together so that we can have a more structured discussion. And I'm going to turn to that. But while I'm on my slides, I'll not be able to see your questions and comments. So we'll take them later, and I would love to talk to all of you and discuss these ideas. I have a beautiful question here. Will AI really take over our jobs? We should answer it. It will take over a lot of jobs. It is real, but maybe not all jobs. We'll see what that is. AI takes everything literally. Yes, that's a problem. It doesn't understand sarcasm. It doesn't understand humor. One of the hardest things is to get an LLM to tell you a good joke that you can laugh at. And we will try playing around with that as well. Let me share my screen. Can someone tell me if you can see my screen? I hope you can. Great. So one time, whenever someone looks at what are the limitations of AI, there's a standard thing that, sorry, am I still sharing screen? Okay, yeah, I see a lot of yeses, great. Is this question, how many R's in strawberry? People must have seen this question. AI cannot answer how many R's are there in the word strawberry. This became really big, I think, about 2 years ago, and everyone was trying ChatGPT with this question. Clearly, there are 3 R's in strawberry, but most LLMs were failing at such a simple question. Today, if you use any of the LLMs, it's solved. There's nothing. It can easily tell you how many R's are there in strawberry. So here's a task for all of you. I want all of you to go to an LLM of your choice. And let's do it together as well. I'm going to open some LLM of my choice. Which one should I open? Which one do you all use the most? Vedant, which one do you use the most?
I use Grok on Perplexity.
Grok, I'm not going to use Grok. I'm going to use Perplexity. And Perplexity asks me, what do I want to know? Let me ask it the same question. I'm going to copy paste it. And here I'm also going to copy paste it on the chat. So you all can try as well. Or you can change the string. That's not important. Let's give this to Perplexity. Instead of asking how many R's are there in strawberry, I've asked how many times the number 1 occurs in this string. It says 33. Let me do ChatGPT. ChatGPT is doing some big math. It says 41. Now, I don't know which one's correct, but at least one of the two has to be wrong because I've copy pasted the same prompt. I can go to something like charactercounter.com. It just counts the number of characters and put this in. It says there are 70 characters, one word. Let's see. 41 times the number 1 occurs. So Perplexity got it wrong. ChatGPT got it right. Perplexity actually got it wrong by a big margin. 41 minus 33 is not excusable. It's missing out 8, roughly 20%. So what's happening? I fully agree with you that an LLM cannot understand emotions. And by the way, my Perplexity is a pro version, I think. Yeah, say Perplexity Pro. So even the pro versions are failing at such a simple question, which is just counting. I'm not giving it emotions. I'm not asking it some deep question about the reality of the world or the nature of the soul or whether God exists. This is a counting exercise that a 5th grader should be able to do. What do you think? What's happening? Let's post it in the chat. Karishma says that when ChatGPT was asked, yes, they fixed that error with strawberry, but why is it getting this small prompt wrong? How many ones are there in the string? Did you all try it? Some of you might try Grok, some of you might do DeepSeek. Try out different tools. See what happens. Yes, so Krishna Shah, yes. So guess my AI is weak in math as of me. Maybe, yes. See, we don't want a tool that cannot do something better than us is useless. We like these AI tools because they make our lives easy. GPT got it right. Okay, GPT is getting it right, but Claude is getting it wrong. Perplexity is getting it wrong. Is GPT perfect then? Clearly, it's not perfect. Maybe if you change the string a little bit, it could make some mistakes. But why is it making these mistakes? Definitely no. So when we ask this question to ourselves, what can AI not do? Is it fair to then say AI cannot even count? Counting the most basic mathematical thing with given instructions, simple rules, it still fails? See, that's where the gray area lies. I want you all to think about it. We'll come back to this and discuss. And that's what we do in our courses. See for ourselves the problems that exist and try to make sense of what could go wrong, and how to build systems that are robust with correctness guarantees that don't go wrong. I'll talk about this guy called Alan Turing. Nice guy, did some computer science. Many of you have heard of him. Another film recommendation is Imitation Game. It's highly dramatized. It's not real, but it's a good film. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is the reason I liked it. But anyway, you're welcome to see a biographical film of Alan Turing. He did a bunch of things in his life. He participated in a mission to break the Enigma, which was Nazi German encryption system during the World War. It's believed that his works reduced the wartime by 3 to 4 years at the very least. He saved thousands and thousands of lives through math and through computer science. What he also did is explore a fundamental question in computer science, which is what is a computer and what are the limits of computation? And he asked a very important question in AI, which is, what is this artificial intelligence? His definition is, an artificial intelligence is a system that can do well in the imitation game. It can imitate humans. So I ask it a question, it responds to me like a human. And ChatGPT does that. It's very eerie. If you were 100 years ago, if you could tell someone that there'll be a small metal box where you put in a question and you see an answer coming out, they would call you a magician or maybe a witch, depending on which part of the world you are in, right? In India, you'll be a magician. If you're in Salem, Massachusetts, it'll be like, oh, this is witchcraft, this is evil, and burn you at stake. AI evolved because of the works of a lot of people. One can trace it back to 1956 when this group of people came together and tried to define what would artificial intelligence look like and how do you actually create a system that can break this test, this imitation game. One aspect that many of us forget is that AI is this old. It starts in 56. It doesn't start with ChatGPT. There's a lot of groundwork to be laid before we see tools like ChatGPT come up and take over our lives. The first tool here is Eliza. Eliza was this counseling tool which was built. And look at the irony. All of you started with psychology, counseling, emotions can never be done. But the first chatbot ever built was exactly for that. You can try out Eliza, and there's an online version for it. Maybe Vedant, you can look it up. It should be on the New Jersey State University website and post the link on the chat. But in the meanwhile, I'll show you what I did. I asked Eliza, how many R's are there in the word strawberry? It gave me a very interesting response. This tool coming from 60s, does it pass the imitation game or not? Yeah, here you could try it, njit.edu. You'll be able to find it, Vedant. It's also here. Maybe I can just copy it. Great. After this entire small LLM like bots back then, chatbots like Eliza that came up, we reached a phase of machine learning and AI called the AI winter, where not much progress was made. It's the first AI winter, 1970s. And then it takes up, 1980s, we have expert systems that are specifically solving problems only in medicine, problems only in one particular domain, like let's say chemistry, but not doing anything in general. They are capable of human-like decision-making in very small contexts. And then we again see a winter. And now we have reached a point where we must ask ourselves what's coming next. Are we going to break through on AGI, artificial general intelligence, create one tool to solve them all? Are we going to kind of plateau with incremental progress? Or will there be a third AI winter where this whole obsession dies out and people go back to something new? Maybe they go to quantum computing or blockchains or whatever the new buzzword is in the market. So let me take a pause here and see if you have any questions about AI. Okay, I see there are very interesting questions coming up for how to prompt AI. Yes, prompt engineering is an important part. But let's talk about limitations. And the limitation first I want to keep in mind is that it's not a monolith. There is way more to AI than just an LLM, all the way starting from the works in 56. With us today, we have a CS math major, Vedant Gautam. Vedant has been working on some very interesting projects here, and he's also interested in a bunch of other things, including theater. And he doesn't do his assignments on time or his TA duties on time and spends too much time in the theater. So finally, I have him out of the black box. Do you want to introduce yourself, Vedant? You can just speak up and this will catch.
Thank you for the introduction, Professor. So, as Professor already told, I am a CS math major. I'm also doing a philosophy minor, and I dabble into filmmaking and theater from time to time. I have also been working as a research assistant under Professor Thakkar, and that has been pretty great until now. When I was asked to do this talk with you, Professor, I thought of what questions have I asked you already in class, and what question I would probably ask you now that I have some more knowledge of the domains that we were studying already. And if you would like to take questions from the chat first, that's fine. Otherwise, I have some questions that you can answer.
So, Vedant, my computer is slightly far away. Can you speak up?
Okay.
After this, yeah. We can hear you, but
Yeah.
Please speak up a bit.
Sure. So, would you like to take questions from the chat or can I?
Up to you. Yeah. Questions from the chat are good. Your questions are good. Whichever order you prefer.
Oh, all right. So I'll start with mine first. So you talked about what limitations AI has and what tasks that it cannot do. But it's also true that now it can do most menial or basic tasks for us. So how do you decide? Because I know that you use AI for a lot of things in your life. How do you decide which things to automate and which things to not automate and do on your own?
So that's a very difficult question. What do I like to automate and what I don't like to automate? Let's say I have to write an email. There are many cases where I use AI to write emails. There are many cases where I don't think it's a good idea. And that decision really depends on the context and some of my personal preferences. There are times when I prefer the rawness that comes with natural writing, especially if it's an emotionally charged email. And I send many university-wide angry emails. So all of them are handwritten. They are actually not AI generated. So all my angry emails are handwritten. But more importantly, if there is something that I want to communicate, which is just factual, and I need to arrange it in sentences, I use AI, LLMs primarily. If not, I don't. But that doesn't answer your question. It is very specific to the context of which email to write. Sadly, every context has a different answer. So you might have a different answer for example, let's say when I'm designing a test, would I use AI to create the problem sets, or would I refer to many textbooks, or would I sit and think and make up problems? I use a mix of all of them. It's okay to use a mix of all of them, but it has to go through a thorough editing before I put it up on a question paper for a test, or let's say preparing some other material for my research. I serve as a human judge of what goes through. And as long as I have something that I can approve of and feel comfortable signing on, I use AI. There are many places where I don't know what the impact would be, and there is no clear metric of whether it's good enough or not. So if I don't have that good enough test and criteria, it's not a good idea of using AI. If we have it, then one can use it and one should use it.
All right. That answers my question pretty well. As for my next question, you said that you take care of what you put out there, even if you do use AI to automate a task. Then do you think that the responsibility of the tool that you're using lies with the user in any case where a decision has to be made? Or does it also lie with, because all these models that are coming up, they are mostly proprietary, and companies have a lot of say in the data that they are trained on. So what where does the responsibility lie in this sphere of creation of this knowledge or creation of this medium of knowledge dissipation and the user that you are?
So responsibility is a very technical detail. Responsibility could mean different things when you're coming from a legal standpoint versus when you're coming from a moral standpoint. Regardless, we treat AI not as an agent that has autonomy, but rather as a tool that some autonomous agent uses, in which case it is just like having a very fancy calculator. So if I am doing some math on which something depends, let's say I owe you money, how much money do I owe you? I type it in a calculator, my calculator makes a mistake, I pay you more or I pay you less, I remain liable. The responsibility remains with the one who has autonomy. And as humans, we have the autonomy of making a decision. And we use that tool to only help us make that decision better. So I would say the responsibility entirely lies with us, and which is why it's so difficult. We would think that our tool better give us a good answer. And as we saw in the counting case, it fails. And I see a question in the chat bot, is AI a tool? No, AI is a bunch of tools, but any given platform that you're using or any given application you're using is its own one specific tool.
All right, makes sense. But so then, if there's no way to know, because you said there are multiple frameworks to what can be considered responsible. And similarly, you talked about in one of the earlier classes that the idea of correctness of a model or like what it means for a model to be robust is not that clear to us in general. So then, are there decisions that one should take that a statistical model would give us a different answer? But just because you feel there is a black box over there and you do not know where the decision is coming from, it's better to take a decision. This is actually not a very technical question. This is a much more personal level question of how one should use and approach the use of such models. And that's why I'm asking that would you rather take a decision about how you say certainly feel about a problem, even though a statistical model would give you a different answer?
Absolutely. See, there are many cases where you would make a decision even though it doesn't depend on, it doesn't, let's say, congruent to what tool is. Those are the cases where you judgment be to text them something, and I know there's a certain kind of joke that works because I know their sense of humor. But I am a bit underconfident because angry and I forgot. Let's just hypothetical scenario. It did not happen. Stop smiling with that. So I might go and ask AI because I'm a little bit underconfident. Yeah, sorry, I got disconnected, but can people hear me now? Okay, people can hear me now. Yeah, sorry for the glitch. There is some problem with my internet. My bad. Well, I'm surprised with the same internet. But anyway, in that scenario, I might know what joke works in that context, but I would not trust AI, and I would actually do discussion. This ties back to something that many students wrote just before you walked in, which is AI doesn't necessarily understand emotions, sympathy, human context, and so on. There might be another case. I might be looking at a mathematical problem or a technical problem where I have an insight which is believed to be false by many others. As we know, language models are trained on large amounts of data. that data may be biased in a particular way. And therefore, coming up with something that's dramatically different and original might require me to actually go against the trend. So even in science, in math, where there is a partial note of objectivity and a definition of even there one might overrule what an AI tool suggests. But at the end of the day, it is a tool. So it's possible that you have a particular thing in mind that you want to achieve. When the tool doesn't help you achieve that, you discard the tool.
All right, Professor. But for the first situation specifically, you had an argument, hypothetical argument with your girlfriend. If say we change the situation a little bit, and I want to now, I think you're paused.
I'm muted or what?
Yeah. All right. So say I want to analyze my own writing, and I want AI to create something that sounds just like me and understands context. Okay.
I'm just going to change
let's-
my Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And you can
I can. All right. Am I audible now?
and can people hear me?
Yeah. Is Professor also audible?
So Vedant, you'll just join from that side. No?
All right.
One side. Yeah, you just sit. Oh, name, the light doesn't work. It's fine. Oh, tech issues.
Yeah.
But I think now they can hear me. So please repeat your question. So back to the hypothetical scenario.
Yeah. So in the hypothetical scenario, but I will change the scenario a little, which is it's still related to the style of writing and the style of understanding context. This is something that I've done, which is I trained a local model and fed it all my scripts and all the essays that I've written, and I asked it to create something new, a new story out of it. Now, in that condition, it wasn't very good, primarily because I did not have too much data. I have not written that much stuff. But say if we want to train it on Stephen Meyer's stuff and we teach it everything that this writer has ever written, what are the ethical implications of this according to you, if we are not using this for any commercial purposes, because that obviously brings in a completely different um, question. And B, do you think that is the same as what someone else has written, because it follows the same technical understanding of how language works?
So we already have many questions about it in the chat. So first, can you answer Caleb on what is a local model?
Oh, so most of the models that we run, like ChatGPT or Perplexity, they are online models. They are somewhere on a server, and you send them a request, and they send you an answer back. A local model is something that you run on your own laptop or your own PC, and you can train it however you would like to train it.
And this raises another question of what about authentic work? What we know is that these days AI is writing books, replicating artwork. So where does the authenticity lie? Which is very similar to the question you asked, where even if it is trained only on your work and you are producing it, you are prompting it, is it your own? That's a very difficult question. If we look at AI as a tool, then yes, you're using a tool to create art, to create writing, to create literature. So in that sense, it is your own. But remember that this entire tool was trained on a lot of material that is not your own. For example, it's trained on all the books in the world, a lot of open source books in the world, on a lot of the internet, on many materials that are also copyrighted, many materials that are not in the open access domain, which means it is murky. And that becomes a question about where do we draw the line. The way I understand it is, even as humans, when we write, it is a consequence of what we've read. And some of us have read a lot to the point where we've forgotten everything that we've read. But a part of it is somewhere in our memory. Maybe there's a particular phrasing or a particular example that I really like. I don't remember where I read it, and I'll end up referring to it in my writing. I might forget that I had read it somewhere before, and I might feel, look at me, I'm so smart, I came up with it on my own. But it might be an adoption of something that was done before. If you look at any great artist, let's say Da Vinci or Michelangelo, anything that they painted, because they were realists and humanists in the Renaissance era, was all an adaptation of previous work. They were mythological figures that were represented in different forms before. These were already known stories. So what they were painting, or even Raja Ravi Verma, for example, in the Indian context, they're not painting new things. The originality lies in them doing the work. Same way, if you're training a local model, prompting it in certain ways, coming up with an answer, editing, your creativity lies in how you use the tool, not necessarily the output of the tool itself. But it's a very hard line to draw. Let's try to get back to the question of what can AI not do, rather than focusing too much on how to use AI, because some of your questions are more about what's the right way of using it or what's the appropriate way of using it.
All right, Professor. I will keep that in mind. I am, as it is now, moving to some questions from the audience.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's this question: why does the same AI platform like ChatGPT or Perplexity differ with their answers to the same question when asked from different devices?
Mood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is moody. No, so the thing is that it's a very interesting phenomenon. When we train language models to respond similar to what you see in text, they give very bookish answers. So the string of words that are produced all tend to look very similar, very methodical, almost robotic. In order to deal with this, the developers of these technologies use different parameters to um, give it a human touch. So technically, it's called temperature of a model. If you're using a local model or you have a custom API access to some tool, you can change the temperature. But what temperature does is it basically adds a little bit of randomness so it sounds more human-like. That's the reason why two sessions of the same LLM is going to give you slightly different answers or slightly different phrasings with the same meaning or very similar meanings.
All right, Prof. So before we go to the next question, there's a poll in the chat and in the meeting that the team has put up. I prompt all of you to please go and fill that up. It's a very interesting questionnaire that they have made, and it will also help us with the discussion further. So while you do that, Professor, there's this another question from the audience. Is synthetic biological intelligence possible? Will it get human emotions? It's a very, very wide question.
Yeah, so that's a question more for a person like Bittu, who's a professor in the biology and psychology department here. He is an excellent researcher who studies how we can build synthetic brains and what does reasoning mean at a brain neuron level. So this is a perfect question for someone like Bittu. The way I see it is, yes, it is possible, but it requires us to have a thorough understanding of the biology of neurons. And we don't understand neurons and the structure of the brain enough to make progress there. Some of Bittu's work here in the biology department is trying to understand a particular kind of fish, which is called zebra fish, I believe. Now, zebra fish is a very simple fish. It has very few neurons, and therefore you can study the structure pretty well. If you can make a perfectly artificial zebra fish, it raises hope for building more complex brains like a human brain. So I think, yes, it is possible to have synthetic brains or brain-like systems that behave exactly as expected, but it requires us to work a lot in biology and psychology and neuroscience and cognitive science before we can make that progress.
So some people have asked in the chat, what is an LLM? And I think
You tell us, what is an LLM, Vedant?
so. The full form of LLM is a large language model, and it is a type of artificial intelligence model, which so all these Chat GPT, DeepSeek, Perplexity, all of these models are large language models. That is what they're called, and they're called large language models because they are trained on a copious amounts of texts, and based on that they try to predict what is the next word that can come given certain constraints, and the constraints are the question that you ask it and the last word that it predicted. So that way it tries to string a sentence together, and that is how it gives an answer back to us, and those are called large language models, or LLMs for short. Someone has also said, is it like making Jarvis in VS Code? And I think more or less it is like making Jarvis in VS Code if you train a local model good enough. Um, so next question for you, Professor, is do you think AI will ever truly understand things, or will it always be pattern learning?
That's a very difficult question. It right now, large language models, and some of you may have read about it, the kind of AI technology and large language models that we use have billions of parameters. With these many parameters, it's hard to make sense of what is it that's really happening. Whether it's actually doing pattern recognition, or whether it's doing some original creative work, or whether it is doing a search to come up with an answer. Is it actually learning from interactions or just memorizing and overfitting the answers? It's a mix of all of them. And because it is so large a system, giving correctness guarantees or thinking about it becomes very, very difficult. So I would say it's a mix of all of them, but not just pattern matching. It goes a little bit beyond pattern matching because it can generalize from patterns to unseen patterns.
Yeah. So I asked this a similar question a few months ago in one of my classes, and my professor told me that it's more of a philosophy question than
Who
a
was
CS
which was
question.
this course?
This was Introduction to Computer Science.
Oh, you asked me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is more of a philosophy question, and that is what Professor Siantonis also once told me.
Okay.
Yeah, so for anyone who's looking to understand like what understanding actually is and what it means for a non-human brain to um, understand it, it is much more a philosophical question. And for texts, like where do stories come from, where does the originality comes from, that is a question well answered in literature as well. This comes from my experience of taking FCs at Ashoka, which are very required, and they have taught me a lot about computer science.
This was lit in the world, or where?
This was Literature in the World by Professor Jonathan Gill Harris.
Oh, the Shakespeare one.
Yeah, the Shakespeare one.
Nice. Yeah, so again, if you look at any of the stories of Shakespeare, and I'm sure if you took a course with Jonathan, you would hear this again and again. More than half of the Bollywood stories are just repeating the same framework that we see in stories as old as Shakespeare and even much before.
Yeah.
Even Shakespeare is repeating stories from before. But that doesn't mean Shakespeare lacks originality or our Bollywood directors lack originality. What they bring to the table is another layer and another retelling. And in some sense, there is no new thing. I think someone posted it on the chat. Yeah. Everything that needs to be said has already been said, but since no one was listening, everything must be said again. This quote by Andre Gide, which Avantika has shared, it's kind of that. All art is just imitating previous art.
Yeah. So there's a very interesting question in the chat, Prof, which is, uh, could you explain how Jarvis from the MCU is AI? Can we develop our AI that much? Is it possible to create Iron Man level AI?
I would like to hope so. It would be amazing to have Man level AI. Uh, but it is okay. So here's a little bit more interesting answer. Everything that we can do today in AI was first described in some science fiction. Literally everything that we are talking about building, developing towards, first came to us through some madman sitting somewhere imagining a world where the impossible could be possible. Jarvis from the Marvel Universe is something similar. And right now, we don't have the technology to make uh, those kind of suits that can take over and actually supplement humans to that level. But because it has been conceived, it's possible to work towards it. And I'm hopeful that we will build something like that, if not exactly that.
Okay. I would also really, really like a Jarvis if,
Yes.
yeah. But this is more of a CS question than about AI, which is what mindset shift did you have to make to start thinking like a true computer scientist rather than just a coder? And it's very interesting to ask this question to you because you say that you are a mathematician and not a computer scientist.
Right.
Yeah.
So, can you repeat the question? I was replying to something else in the chat.
What mindset shift
Hmm.
did you have to make to start thinking like a true computer scientist rather than just a coder?
Yeah, so one has to think about what is computer science and what's the nature of computer science. Computer science, and this is basically me repeating my entire course that you've just taken. So, no point for you, but just for the audience. Computer science, as the science of computation and procedures, predates modern digital systems. So, broadly speaking, there are two kinds of knowledge. One is imperative knowledge, and the other is declarative knowledge. Most of you are very familiar with what is declarative knowledge. This is a collection of facts. This happened, this is true, that is true. Um, Paris is the capital of France, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, all that stuff. One example of declarative statement in math is square root. So if x is a positive number, y is the square root of x. If y squared, y times y is equal to x. We come up with a definition. But that is not a procedure. It doesn't tell you how do you compute a square root. So if I give you a number, let's say 121, is there a number such that you can multiply it with itself that gives you 121? Well, the definition doesn't tell you by construction. Imperative knowledge is the knowledge and understanding of procedures that can help you build and construct solutions. And computer science is focused on this constructive and very pragmatic constructive approach of mathematics. Now, one must ask ourselves, we must all ask ourselves, if computer science is the study of procedures, what is coding? But coding also seems like procedures. But it is basically giving instructions about these procedures in a precise manner to a computer. The first programmers, and you could read more on the history of computer science, used to use sheets with punch cards. So punch is made on them.
Pascal's machine.
Pascal's machine, yes. So punch hole machines where you actually punch cards and compute with that. Then came other programmable systems where you could actually write some low level code. Then came programming languages where you can program and write them more simply. And then after the start of programming languages, newer and newer languages came which were easier and easier to use, to the point where we now have Python, which is a language which is almost like natural language descriptions. You can almost read it as if it's English. Today, we have reached a level where we can communicate our ideas and procedures very accurately in natural language using these modern language technology, NLP technology, or language models, one could say. But at the end of the day, the procedure is what we are building. Coding is through which we are communicating. So it's important to learn computer science, to learn coding as much as it is to learn language itself, to speak clearly, precisely, and express your ideas. But doesn't really give you the idea itself. If someone knows language perfectly, that doesn't mean they can write very well. They can just form sentences very well. So, what we need to focus on is ideas, processes, and how do we construct them from scratch. Additionally, which is what my area of specialization is, robust, it'll be fair, it will not have any undesired, unexpected effects. Can we use mathematics to give some correctness guarantees? That put together gives you what is computer science, and that's what our entire course is focused on. So if you, let's say, go to a cryptography class, it's not so much about how can you basically sit and encrypt something. No one is really going to encrypt by hand. The math is out there. Most of you can code it up. Many of you already in school know programming. So looking at some procedure, you can build it. The question really is, how do we build state-of-the-art cryptography that has never been seen before? And that is Bhumika's work. I don't know if you know about her capstone project, but that was on ring encryption systems.
Yeah.
So there are 5 people. One of us is going to send a message. We want to sign it on behalf of the entire group, but we don't want someone to know who's signing it. And how do you build such a system? It's actually a novel idea of cryptography, which is computer science, but she's thinking about the procedure, not just about how do I write it down in Python and get something done. So it's this fundamental core ideas and principles. That's what the subject is about.
So, I think this will be the last few questions. There are a lot of them which I will not be able to take. I'm sorry about that. But so there's this person who's asking that AI doesn't have emotions, but people like to talk and share things with it. Even this person's friends share their problems with it because they like the way it consoles and gives solutions without judging. So can it replace the therapist to some extent? And this also ties back into Eliza.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to start with Eliza. So I can see immediate reactions from some people saying, no, that sounds like a terrible idea. Turns out this is a practice that's going on, and a lot of money is being put to build these kind of systems. In Bit2, again, teaches mind and behavior, one of the FCs, likes to start with Eliza and see how it could become terrible. It's almost dystopian to think that there's a rule-based stupid system out there that's going to help you with your mental health, because you are at a position of powerlessness when you're approaching a counselor. You are the one who needs help, and you've been put in this kind of a space, and you're relying on a tool which you don't know is worthy of your trust. This is actually an interesting space because people are going to do it regardless. And the power that we have as computer scientists is to build more responsible tools to solve and make these systems. So we can educate people that this is a bad idea, working very closely with psychologists. But if people are going to build these tools anyway, it's to come up with the right set of safeguards and build them in a more human and humanistic way so that it doesn't lead to undesirable effects.
All right. So thank you, Professor. This will be the last question that I will ask you now. And I will club a couple of questions because they sound similar to me at least, which is, so with AI becoming so powerful nowadays, where should we as human beings draw the line? Which is to say that, which is, where is the task? Like, for example, you clearly think that therapy is not something that can be outsourced to machines or to models. And so this person wants to know how do we know where to draw the line on what tasks to outsource and what not to outsource to machines, which also ties back to my first question that I asked you. How do you decide what to automate and what not to automate?
I wish there was a simple yardstick that I could give, automate these 5 things and don't automate these 7. But one can say that if you are going to do something that's safety critical, that that is related to, let's say, a lot of lives, mental health is one of them, but also, let's say, AI for medicine and high precision operation, personalized medicine, etc. Or if it is for a lot of amount of money, or it's about security, national security, banking transaction security, anything that is critical, the due diligence is to give a formal correctness guarantee. Only after you give such a guarantee does it make sense to deploy any technology with AI or without AI. Where can you use AI? Use it for things that are not as safety critical. Write an essay and you want some feedback on it, you want some critique on it. Great idea. I often want to create names and titles for things and brainstorm some ideas. I'll be like, this is my proposal. Help me come up with 10 different titles for this piece of writing. And all of them will be bad, but it gives me a good starting point for what can I do. So it's the impact that kind of informs when to use AI and when not to use AI.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor. I would now ask Charan to take over and for the rest of the talk.
Thank you, Vedant. Thank you for such an insightful
Ask
session.
them to wait for 10 minutes and not to knock again.
Thank you,
Sorry.
yeah. Thank you, audience, for joining in. I hope you got a glimpse into the limitations of AI. Before we wrap up the session, we would really appreciate it if you could please take a minute to share your valuable feedback with us. The link to the feedback form is provided in the chat box. Please note that the recording of this session will be available on Ashoka's YouTube channel in case you would like to share it with your friends. The next webinar of Explore is scheduled for Monday, 15th September at 6 p.m. The session will be delivered by Professor Saikat Majumdar, Head of Department of English and Professor of English and Creative Writing at Ashoka University. The title of his talk is Finding Your Voice, a Writing Workshop. The registration link for this session is provided in the chat box. I would once again like to inform our audience that registrations for the undergraduate program starting next year in August 2026 are open, so register soon. If you have any further queries regarding various other aspects of the university, feel free to write to us at ugapply@ashoka.edu.in. Once again, I thank our speakers for taking our time out to participate in this discussion. This brings us to the end of the session. Please take care and enjoy your evening. Thank you.